got so distracted with the putting things together. Okay. So,
No problem.
Sister Culotta.
Mary, just call me Mary
Sister
Ann.
Mary. Okay.
Mary Ann.
Oh, Mary Ann.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Sister Mary Ann. So, it is 1:12 p.m. It is Tuesday, the 26th. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Little concerned about all this, but
Of course.
I'll be okay.
Yeah, I can understand it could probably be a little bit nerve-wracking to have all these things facing you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so to get started with this, we wanted to kind of talk about your childhood.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Way back.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I was born in 37.
Okay.
So I'm 86, going on 87 in August.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
And my childhood, I lived with my mom and dad. Dad was a very hardworking person. He would get up early and go to a service station. He was a gas service station person. And Mom cooked and stuff like that. It was happy. It wasn't perfect. It was very, we were somewhat poor, and we had, but we had what we needed, and we didn't think we were poor, other than when Mom would say something like, well, listen, you can have a nickel today, and for anything you want. And that was exciting. It was like, whoa, that's really an experience.
Absolutely.
And then my brother was the older of the two, and then we became three with my sister Joyce. So it was Jim, Mary Ann, and Joyce. And Joyce was a character, a delightful character. She would get into to bed and leave the light on. We in the same room. And I'd say, Joyce, I was in bed first. You turn off the light. Typical kid stuff.
Absolutely.
I had a lot of aunts and uncles because Mom had 11 siblings.
Wow.
And they all doted on me. I was the first grandchild and child. And so that was, so I was spoiled, I think, a bit. I got a doll house, and it even had lights in it.
Oh, wow.
It was special.
Right.
So what else? Childhood. In elementary school, is that going too fast?
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, elementary school, I was in fourth grade, I prayed that I would get on the team. And so I promised that I would say 3 rosaries, the whole 15 decades of the rosary. When I got on the team, I wasn't so sure I wanted to be on the team after having said 3 rosaries in one night. But I got on the team and I prayed.
What team was that again?
Volleyball.
Volleyball, okay.
And then I played basketball. And in 8th grade, I was excited because one day I actually made 28 points.
Oh, wow.
It must have been a terrible team on the other side. But I was so excited to have done that. So I played, my least favorite was indoor ball, cabbage ball.
Oh, okay, right.
Because you had to be out in the sun and it was hot and that sort of thing. So what else? So that's childhood. I had friends, and I went to high school. And in high school, I actually became a referee.
Okay.
It brought a little money in, that sort of thing, and got on varsity. And I just went to high school for 3 years. because I decided to enter religious life. And I decided that, strangely as may seem, I decided that at a dance. It was a CYO dance, Sunday night, St. Anthony of Padua Parish. And I'm dancing with this guy, and he said to me, "You want a piece of gum?" And I said, "No, thanks." And I just said to myself, there's got to be more to life than this. And crazy as it may seem, at 10 o'clock at night, I decided, this is teenage mind, I decided to walk over to the Priory, which was the rectory, and rang the doorbell and asked for Father Marr, who was our pastor. And he wasn't a bit surprised when I told him I wanted to be a nun. And as I think back, you know, if somebody would ring the doorbell at 10 o'clock and tell me they want to be a nun, I'm not sure I'd be as pleasant as he was. But anyway, I went back to the dance, and you know, and then when I went away to study, they told me, you know, we could actually go and come home for vacation. And so everybody at the dance would say, "Well, we give you 6 weeks, and we'll see you again."
Right.
But I loved, you know, going to the dance. And of course, the biggest problem was Mom then. She would say, "Well, you know, since you're going to be a sister, I don't think you should do this. You know, I don't think you should go to the dance." Right. But I did. So should I go faster?
Oh, no, absolutely. No. I do have a couple questions, though.
Do.
Yes.
Stop me anytime.
Okay, yes. So I just wanted to ask you, I guess to start, was your family particularly religious when you were growing up? I know you said that
yes,
the pastor, Mark, was your pastor.
Yes, we were. Dad was working most of the time, so when he went, I don't know what he did on Sunday. He probably did go to church, and but we were very religious. Mom had, in my room, had the Blessed Mother right in front on the dresser. And then I wanted a little altar in the room. And so Dad built in the corner this little cubicle where I could put a statue and my favorite things. And then I remember Mom saying one day to me, you know, I think that it would be good for us to read the scripture. Now, I didn't know anything about the scriptures at that time. And she was reading to me, but I don't know what she was reading, you know. Mm-hmm. I was too young. But it was, and I would go to church a lot. Mom would go. When we were older, she would go every day. Okay. Dad worked till 10 o'clock at night, and I think on Sundays. As he got older and didn't work at the service station anymore, he would be freer to go to church. Right. So okay. What other questions?
Well, so I was wondering, like, the church. What was it about it that drew it to you? Was it comfort, or?
It was comfort. It was that drawing. I remember when I made my first communion, and the prayer in my life, even as a child. I remember making Mom and Dad's bed. We lived in a shotgun house, you know, the two places. And Mom and Dad's room was in the front. And so I was making the bed, and this is a favorite memory. I just thought of of God at that time. And it was just very special. So there was a closeness, it was a calling even as a child.
Right.
I think God, He's told me, and notice I said he, sometimes it's she.
Right.
But Jesus was probably more my favorite in the beginning.
Okay.
And then when I was a novice later on, the Spirit became very powerful in my life.
Right.
I was reading St. Elizabeth of the Trinity's book, and she talks about the Spirit.
Okay.
That was many years ago.
Okay.
So,
So I guess if we could go maybe towards your early days of your novitiate. Right?
novitiate.
Yes,
mhm.
ma'am.
It was wonderful. It was like being in a sorority. We had good times. We studied a lot, and I had gone to Sacred Heart High School on Canal Street, which was, had boys and girls. So during recesses, we'd play basketball or we'd have dances and stuff like that. Where was I going with that? Okay, okay, and then when we had, so it was high school, and I'm a bit distracted, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We were just talking about the early days of the
early
novitiate.
days. So yeah, we had fun. Except we had to weed, and I wasn't crazy about weeding. But we'd play ball and that sort of thing. One day, this was funny. We had a sister who was pretty macho, real strong. She's in our infirmary now and just cannot do much at all. But we were out in the field raking, and one of the rams got loose and came at us. I had a rake, and I had the rake like this, and the ram would hit the rake, and it would go into my stomach. So we finally went and called Sylvia. Somebody got away and called Sylvia. And Sylvia came and she held the horns of that ram while we ran inside.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. So it was another time, it was out in the country. There was a snake. I was sweeping, and there was a snake that I hit by mistake. I didn't see it. And so somebody ran and got Molly, who was really good with identifying snakes. And she said, "Oh, that's just a king snake. He's just angry because you hit him." But then he went up the screen. So it was just kind of fun. Besides praying, and some tough times were like when a sister would die, maybe staying up during the night, taking turns to stay up with the corpse. Oh. And I'm in this big chapel with just one other person, and there was a movement, and I went, oh, it was like, but it was fine. It was just nerves.
Absolutely.
So, what else? So it was, we'd pick strawberries and all that. We'd have prayer days, and I loved it. Actually, the hardest time was making the decision to really go for it, to take vows.
Right.
Because then I realized, this is serious stuff. So I talked with this priest who was a Dominican, and he said, "Oh, go for it. You can. I know that this is really right for you." So I did. Then things got a little tougher because there was a lot of work to do, and there was a lot of studying. But it was fine. it was hitting the road, so to speak. And there were times when decisions were made that, like I wanted to go into, I wanted to study French. And the powers that be said, you would be an excellent primary teacher. So I became a primary teacher. And then later on, and it was perfect. I loved the classroom. I had a child in Paulina one day look up at me and she said, "I wish you were my mother." I know. And I wanted to say, now I know, I should have said, "Tell me about your mother." What was going on, I don't know. I often think of that child today. And we had a child get killed by the school bus. And I walked into the classroom and they were supposed to be playing. They were all just sitting there, But it was wonderful because I was mothering 30 kids, 35,
Right. Do you feel like your experience teaching brought you closer to the church in a way and to your profession?
Absolutely. And God brought into my life that love that went out to them. And in my life, my ministries, I really feel God called me very much like He called my grandparents. Okay. My paternal grandfather did different things in his life. And from the classroom, I went to, I taught for 18 years. Then I was asked to do, one was a public school. I was principal of a public school that was in Mississippi. That was really something. It was during the times of KKK. Oh, and I never knew when we were going, and I was in the habit at the time. Mm-hmm. I never knew when we were going to have a fire on the front lawn or something like that, or a cross burning. Right. Went to see Heat in the heat of the night with the other sisters in Mississippi, and they said to us, "What did you come see this movie for?" I said, "Well, we had to do some research." So we were the only ones in the show. Right. Because of the whole attitude toward race relations.
Very contentious.
And how did the nuns, during those times, how did you guys feel or deal with it, or?
Yeah, we just did what we thought best. We were dealing not only with racism, but we were dealing with a group of white people who were very uneducated and who had outhouses. Seriously, the first house that we lived in, I really didn't plan on speaking about this, actually it was for the principal and his family. Well, it was for the sisters because I was the principal. I went as a teacher for 2 years and then I became principal. I could see a hole in the ground through the floor, and we had outhouses. One of my best meditations, one of the outhouses was farther back, and I went back there, and all of this is on, I went back there and got caught. The rain came down in torrents. So I said, well, I haven't prayed yet, so okay. So I stood in the door and looked out at the trees, and I just prayed until it stopped raining. So it was something. I asked my first graders that day, tell me, they had pictures of an inside bathroom and the outhouse. How many of you have this? 1 or 2 hands went up. Okay, how many of you have this? More hands went up. some hands didn't go up at all.
Oh.
And so I went over to one of the boys and I said, where do you go to the bathroom? Out in the barn, behind the barn, behind the barn. We were also told when we went to their houses that we should drink only things hot, because there would be chickens on the table, you know, live, and animals all over the place. So it was really backwards.
Absolutely.
But our superior at the time was, I think she liked the young ones to get out of the house and she'd have quiet after school. She'd say, look, if y'all want to go to the coast, you know, we were just 20 miles out of Gulfport, feel free. And so we'd go there, you know, and we'd have like wieners and chili and stuff like that.
Right.
So we had like a little free time.
And how long did you spend doing that?
I was there for 6 years.
Okay.
And I've had two scary things happen in my life. One is one of the teachers of the 8th grade. This is just going to stay within Loyola, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Of course.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
One of the 8th graders was having problems at home, and the teacher called into the office and she said, so-and-so is in the clinic and doesn't want to be disturbed. And I said to myself, she doesn't want to be disturbed. There's no nurse in there, it's just a physical clinic. I knocked and walked in and she had a scissors like this. And I said, nothing. I was like shocked out of my mind. And she said, I wouldn't have done it. And I said, done what? And I took a counseling class here. My professor said that was the best thing you could have done. She said, I wouldn't have killed myself. And I said, why not? And again, I was like, why did that come out?
Right.
She did a double take. I'll never forget that. Now, that was in the 60s, of like 67, 68. And it was before child protection laws. And the father was abusing the child. And so I said, why don't you come into my office? No, come into, it was right across the hall. Come into the teacher's lounge. Let's just sit down on the sofa. And she's told me what was going on. She said my mother would be killed if he knew that I was saying this, and he would kill me. I went that day to our guidance counselor for the area, not an individual guidance counselor. So, to make a long story short, no one would touch the case. I went to the superintendent. Finally, I went to the police, who was actually paralyzed in one leg and would have to bring his brother-in-law anytime he came. So, to make a long story short, it was really difficult. No one would touch the case. Right. The sheriff said he would put him in parchment for 5 years, but when I told him, I said, this is not to go all over the place. It is just for you and me. This is who it is. And he said, oh, sister, he would not do that. He's my friend.
Wow.
So with that, and with the second case, where my secretary's husband would put her, she was a war bride, and we wanted to pay her way back to England because he would abuse her, and she didn't want to go. So he was drinking and came over to the house, and I was also superior at the time, and I asked one of the sisters who he liked to answer the door because I was hiding her in one of the rooms. And he said, he walked in and he just slapped her and said, "Where is she?" And so when I saw that, I went and called the sheriff, who was 20 miles away. And he said, "Well, sister, I can't come." We had just gotten a phone.
Right.
That's in this area. But he said, "I'll send county patrol." And one of the sisters that night, she was so scared, slept on the floor in my room because, he had gotten into the house. And one was really a feisty one. She was showering at the time, and when he was trying to open the door, she said, "You come in here and you're going to be in trouble." It got to be, the place got to be a little beyond us, I
Yeah.
thought. And so I said I would like to resign. At the end of that year, I resigned. And I still pray for this girl.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's happened to my secretary. I had to learn how to do the cafeteria books for Mississippi because he wouldn't let her come back to work after that. So it got to be, prayer got to be my stronghold.
Right.
And I don't know, I don't want to bore
no.
y'all to death.
No, ma'am.
Please.
We're
Okay,
perfect on time.
okay.
Yes.
The other very difficult ministry was a time where I became principal at St. Matthias School, right on Broadway, and Fontainebleau. Napoleon, that's Broadway. Not Broadway. Napoleon and Broad. And one of the children, first let me go back. I'm on a committee to assign people's ministries. We were about 6 people.
Okay.
And they said, "Would you leave the room for a while?" This is when I was at Dominican College. I was there for 5 years. And that was fine. And I said, okay. Well, one of my predecessor at St. Matthias was leaving the community. And so they said, "Would you become the principal of St. Matthias School?" So I said, "Well, give me time to pray about it." Everything I prayed about was going to the poor, and to those that are in need. And so I said after a week or 2, yes. And also the charismatic renewal was going on at that time, and that was very helpful to me in prayer. Father Cohen was really, really good. Since then, I'm not as into the charismatic renewal as such.
Sorry, what is the charismatic?
The charismatic renewal, it was a group of people who prayed a lot, and I valued the prayer a lot, but it was more Pentecostal than Roman Catholic, so to speak.
Right.
Why did I go there? But anyway, so after praying, I saw that this was the thing. So I went to an inner city school, and the community said to me, "We want you to go there and decide whether to open or close the school or not." Well, I decided, no, we're not going to close the school. I'm going to fight and get it to say. Well, 5 years later, Oh, well, no, first, one of the parents the previous year did not pay tuition, and he drove this very fancy car and was quite a presence in the area. And so the board told me he either pays the tuition or the child doesn't stay in the school. I went there to serve the poor, but I had to keep saying, I don't think he's poor, and he hasn't paid his debts. So anyway, so I told him that I had the Secretary of Police call him and tell him the school board has said that he is not to send the child to school. And the next day he came and said there's going to be bloodshed. And I went, what? I said, oh, you would do that just for money? Yeah.
Right.
I was told, don't ever do that again. I wasn't sure what to do with that, but I called the police. It's like, here I go again, you know?
Sort of in a cycle.
I called the police, I called the Archdiocese, and I was told that, he said, oh, sister, he said, this guy has 5 felonies for which he's never been convicted, from armed robbery to rape. We're sending police protection. So they would come every morning and escort me from the convent to the school and stay in the school until 3 o'clock and then walk me home. So Mrs. Landrew was really a wonderful lady, and Moon was really very good. And Verna came to me and said, Mary Ann, what's going on?
Right.
I said, oh, the police here, oh, we're telling the kids this office is friendly, but this is what's going on, so I told them. So she said, well, look, Moon's out of town. I'm going to send his bodyguard. So I had his bodyguard, and George would tell me, and George told Moon later, I'd rather be with her, okay? Which was sweet. So boy, when Moon died, I was here to tell him goodbye.
Right.
So it was really tough, but prior to that, I had made a 30-day retreat, which filled my soul so much. It was just so special. And on that 30-day retreat, this was at Grand Coteau. You know, there were flowers, and I would just pray looking at those flowers. And they had also a tomato bush, and I saw the tomato little flower, and then how it grew, and that sort of thing. So I wrote an allegory, I don't know where it is now, on the tomato plant.
Right.
Well, would you believe, during this whole terrible time, in those 2 weeks that I had police protection, doesn't a tomato plant come up outside the yard, right outside our door? And I watched that tomato plant, and it just fed me to keep me going through those years.
Absolutely.
Through the rest of that year, because I knew the school was having to close. Bishop Munch was there, and Bishop Amon was actually a seminarian at the time. That's how old I am. So anyway, But so that just fed me. And during the winter, it did close. It did die, but it was okay. Yeah, I had worked it through. So God has been so present to me.
Absolutely.
And even in this day, I still, it's getting close to time.
That's okay.
I'm a
I
J.
actually have my questions on here, so I've been just keeping an eye on my questions.
Oh,
Yeah.
if you have more important things, feel free.
No, please talk.
Okay.
This is amazing.
Okay. So it was, and my grandfather died. It was my grandfather. My grandfather died during those years. And I realized that my mother was home alone and I was principal and I had to take care of that. It was just, when you're principal, it's just the stuff that comes your way, you never know. We had a fire one day and I learned how to do a fire extinguisher fast. And the firemen came and we had water 5 feet right by the back of St. Matthias. There's a huge dip in the city. And when it rains, it was 5 feet. And they had to bring a pontoon sort of boat and the parents wanted the kids to go home. And I said, no way they're going home. I'm not letting a child out in that water. So anyway.
If you don't mind me asking, did you, when you were younger and when you first entered into the service, did you ever expect to be doing something like that?
No.
No?
No, and then, no, I didn't. It just, there was another time I became a chaplain and was at Our Lady of the Lake as pastoral director and taking CPE at the same time I was directing. But that was after studying and being a pastoral director. Was after studying some time. So, but it's been so rich a life. And now it's wonderful because I do spiritual direction and I can, I pray for the people that I'm seeing. I do Zoom. Yeah. I do dream work, and I was telling Claire about that, how when I was at Matthias, what happened was I started having nightmares about this guy who said there was going to be bloodshed, and I didn't know anything about, I didn't do therapy at first, but I realized that I could study and find out how to get rid of the nightmares. And I did. After studying, I got rid of the nightmares. And then I went into study. I went to Zurich, Switzerland, to study Jungian psychology. And found out I have a cousin who was a Freudian psychiatrist at the Vatican. We've lost touch, but I don't know. I said, are you Freudian or are you Jungian, Carl Jung? And he said, I'm Freudian. I said, that's probably right. But anyway, so what other questions do you have? I've just babbled.
No, this has been beautiful. Great, yeah. So do you think that these challenges that you faced throughout your very varied career, do you think they've brought you closer to God?
Absolutely. I look back, now I look outside my window and I have these beautiful roses. Yesterday, I'm just looking at those roses. Part of my prayer time was just looking at nature. And those gorgeous roses, they wilt a lot fast, but it teaches me about my times of wilting.
Right. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, you know?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
thank you so much for listening
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
to all that.
Let's see.
During the dance, when you decided to take your vows, the question was, this can't be all life is, correct? Do you think that you've received all life is?
No, I think God's got more for me. I really do, because now I have time to study, and I'm reading 2 books right now that is just opening my mind more. One is Ilia de Leo's. She's a Franciscan, and her book is on Jung, Teilhard de Chardin, and the relational whole, which is the whole cosmic aspect. So then I realized I don't know much about Eckhart at all. So I'm finishing Matthew Fox's book on that. So it's just kind of breaking open,
Right.
you know, more. You asked, you know, Claire asked, am I flourishing? I'm exhausted flourishing. I think it was Claire that asked me that. No, I'm not exhausted. It's exhilarating. It really is. You never know what's going to happen next.
Absolutely.
And to be in this moment, each moment is a gift. I have a cousin who's so negative, and I just want to say to her, this moment is precious. Live it up.
Absolutely.
I need to learn how to do that more. The people in my dream group, which I do on Zoom, said, you know, you need to play some more. So one of them came in from Baton Rouge and said, okay, we're going to play putt-putt. So I went and played putt-putt with them. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's my story.
Okay. Well, I'd like to ask you maybe one final question.
Absolutely.
I guess just, do you have any sort of reflections, you know, that now that you've kind of laid bare sort of these periods of your life, and do you have any reflections on faith, on your path, you know, in spirituality? What can you say about your experience?
I can say that the Spirit leads. And sometimes I was reading Teresa of Avila's quote this morning after liturgy, and you know, she said sometimes there are times that I've said no to God, kind of basically that. I don't remember exact words, and I said, she's a great saint, and she's saying no. So the Spirit has led, and when I've allowed God to lead me, then I have flourished. And when I haven't, God has taken me by the hand and said, look, honey, would you just shape up? You know, just, it's the compassionate God, the loving God, is someone that we don't know as a society. And if only we could, you know, if only we can say it enough times. And my spiritual director, you know, like I keep saying, well, maybe I ought to volunteer to do this. No. You know, or volunteer to do that. No, you're doing it now. But then I'd have to deal with the guilt, like, okay, they need such and such.
Right.
But then who's gonna tell them what truth is, or what little truth you've come up with? Who's going to do that? Who's going to say, I challenge your lies?
Right.
I don't have the strength to do that.
Absolutely.
I've had enough drama in my life.
Yeah.
I don't need any more drama.
Okay.
You have a question?
No, I don't.
You don't?
No,
Okay.
I love hearing you speak.
Oh,
Just
thank you.
entranced. Well, that was beautifully said.
Well, thank you. You have gifted me. Did you realize that? You have gifted me by allowing me to verbalize what has gone on in my life.
Okay, that's great.
How many people get to share what's going on in their lives?
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed the experience, and
I did.
good.
Yeah, sometimes I go off on them.
No, that's what makes it good. It's the tangents that make the story.
Oh, okay. Well, take care and thank you so much.
Thank you
Yes,
so much.
absolutely.
You're welcome.